Sara always looked like she had walked out of a fairy tale. At just 19 years old, she was not only the daughter of one of the richest families in Los Angeles, but also the kind of girl who turned heads the moment she entered a room. Her long hazel hair glistened under the California sun. Her soft brown eyes carried innocence, and her smile could melt even the coldest heart. She belonged to a world of luxury, mansions with crystal chandeliers, private yachts, charity galas, and expensive designer dresses. But deep inside, Sara often felt trapped, like a diamond locked inside a glass case, admired but never truly understood. Her parents had already planned her future. They wanted her to marry someone from a wealthy family, someone with a last name that carried weight, someone who could expand their empire and protect their reputation. To them, Sara was a princess, and princesses didn't fall in love with ordinary men. But life had a different plan. That plan came in the form of Jack. Jack was 35 years old, a man who appeared to be nothing more than a struggling salesman. He had dark skin, a rugged face that carried the story of hard work, and eyes that reflected wisdom far beyond his years. He didn't belong to Sara's world of fancy cars and luxurious dinners. Instead, he belonged to the world of long working hours, cheap coffee and bills piling up on the kitchen table. At least that was what everyone thought. The first time Sara saw him was at a small downtown bookstore cafe. She was dressed in an elegant dress worth thousands of dollars, but she had sneaked away from her mansion just to feel like a normal girl for once. Jack was there, quietly reading, sipping on black coffee. There was something about the way he carried himself. Simple, grounded, and real. For Sara, who was surrounded by fake smiles and money-driven relationships, this man felt different. Their conversation began with something as small as Sara asking, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Jack had looked up, surprised that a girl like her would even speak to him. His deep voice had a calmness to it. "No, go ahead." And just like that, an unusual bond began. Sara found herself laughing at his dry humor, curious about his stories, and most of all, captivated by how he treated her, not like a spoiled millionaire's daughter, but like a human being. Weeks turned into months, and soon Sara realized she was in love. Not with the wealth her family flaunted, not with the fancy suitors her parents pushed toward her, but with Jack, the man who only met her once a week on weekends. That became the first struggle of their relationship. Sara, like any 19-year-old girl in love, wanted to see him every day. She wanted to go on midnight drives, hold hands in the park, and spend evenings watching movies. But Jack always refused. He would smile sadly and say, "I wish I could, Sara, but I'm busy with work. I can only see you on weekends." At first, she thought it was an excuse. Maybe he wasn't serious about her. Maybe he didn't love her the way she loved him. But every time she looked into his eyes, she could feel the honesty. Jack wasn't avoiding her, he was protecting something. Sara would pout, argue, and beg. "Jack, I don't care if you're tired or busy. I just want to be with you, even for a few minutes. Isn't love worth that?" And Jack would gently take her hands in his rough palms, replying, "Love is worth everything, Sara. But sometimes love also means patience. Trust me, for now, weekends will have to be enough." This only made Sara love him more. His simplicity, his refusal to be bought, his mysterious distance. It all drew her closer. Unlike the spoiled rich boy she had grown up with, Jack carried dignity. He didn't chase her money, didn't show off, and didn't let her control him. That made her heart race in ways no luxury ever had. But there was another storm brewing. Every time Sara mentioned bringing Jack home, he refused firmly. "No, Sara, not now. Your family. They won't accept me," she would argue endlessly. "You don't know that. They'll see the man I see in you." But Jack would shake his head, his jaw tightening. "No, they'll only see my skin, my job, my age, and they'll judge me for it. You're young, beautiful, and rich. To them, I'll always be the wrong choice." Sara hated that truth, but deep down she knew he was right. Her parents, especially her mother, often made remarks about staying within their class and keeping blood pure. They would never accept Jack, not because of who he was, but because of what he looked like and where he came from. And yet Sara was stubborn. "If they don't accept you, Jack, then I don't care, because I do, and that's all that matters." Jack sighed, torn between love and fear. He knew Sara was loyal, innocent, and brave, but he also knew her world could crush a man like him. Still, love makes even the strongest man bend. And Jack was bending, slowly, unwillingly, but bending to her love. As Sara laid her head on his shoulder one Saturday evening, watching the sunset on the pier, she whispered, "One day, Jack, you'll meet my family, and they'll understand why I chose you." Jack didn't answer. He only stared at the horizon, his eyes carrying a secret Sara had yet to discover. The following weeks only made Sara more determined. Her feelings for Jack had grown stronger, deeper, almost unshakable. What started as a teenage crush had become something far more serious, an obsession, a devotion that blinded her to everything else. For Sara, Jack wasn't just a boyfriend. He was a man she believed was worth defying the entire world for. But Jack, with every passing weekend, seemed more and more restless. He still showed up every Saturday, still held her hand, still looked at her with the same quiet affection. But there was a shadow in his eyes, something he was hiding, something Sara couldn't name, but she could feel. One Saturday night, after a dinner of burgers and fries in a cheap diner far away from her family's mansion, Sara finally snapped. "Jack," she said firmly, her voice trembling, "I'm tired of this. Why do we only meet once a week? Why do you act like I'm some secret you can only see when the world isn't looking? Don't you love me enough to want me every day?" Jack placed his coffee cup down and sighed. His 35-year-old face showed lines of exhaustion, but also maturity. "Sara, it's not about love. It's about life, my life. You don't understand how busy I am. I work 6 days a week. I don't get the kind of freedom you do." Her eyes filled with frustration. "I don't care if you're busy, even if you're tired. I just want to see you, even for 5 minutes. Don't you see? I need you." Jack looked into her eyes, his voice low but firm. "And I need you too. But there's more at stake here than just you and me. You come from the richest family in Los Angeles. I'm just a salesman. Your parents will never—" "Stop!" Sara cut him off, her fists clenched. "I don't care what they think. They don't control me. They can't buy my heart. It's mine, and it belongs to you." Jack's heart ached at her words. She was so young, so passionate, so willing to throw everything away for him. Part of him admired her loyalty. Another part feared it, because he knew what her parents would say. He knew the look of disgust he would receive. He had faced it his whole life, from landlords, from bosses, from strangers in grocery stores, who judged him by his skin before they even knew his name. But facing it from the parents of the woman he loved, that was a different battlefield altogether. Still, Sara refused to back down. The following week, she tried again. This time, her tone was softer, pleading. "Jack, please, I want my parents to meet you. I don't care if they don't like you. I'll make them see who you really are. They'll understand." Jack shook his head. "No, Sara, they won't. They'll look at me and see nothing but a poor black man who doesn't belong in their mansion. And when they insult me, when they treat me like dirt, I can handle it. But I don't want you to see that. I don't want you to be torn between me and your family." Her eyes burned with tears, but she held her ground. "Jack, I'm already torn. Every day I lie to them. Every night I sneak out just to see you. I'm tired of hiding. I don't care if they insult you. I'll defend you. I'll fight for you." Jack closed his eyes, exhaling heavily. Her stubbornness was both her greatest strength and her greatest weakness. She didn't understand how cruel her parents could be. But he also knew one thing: he could never say no to her for long. And so after weeks of resistance, Jack finally gave in. "All right, Sara, if this is what you want, I'll meet them. But don't say I didn't warn you." Sara's face lit up with joy, and she hugged him tightly, whispering, "You won't regret this. I promise." But in the back of Jack's mind, there was only dread. The day of the meeting approached quickly. Sara's parents had no idea. They thought she was bringing over a friend for dinner. Her mother, a tall woman with sharp features and a voice that carried authority, busied herself instructing the maids on table arrangements. Her father, Jeff, a powerful businessman with salt and pepper hair, was polishing his speech for an important guest expected later that evening, Hardy, the regional manager of a massive corporate chain, with whom Jeff was desperate to sign a contract. As Sara stood in her bedroom, staring at her reflection, she smiled nervously. She had chosen a simple dress, not too flashy, not too casual. Tonight was about Jack, about showing her parents that love mattered more than money. Meanwhile, Jack sat in his small apartment, staring at his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. He wore a clean shirt, a plain black jacket, nothing fancy. He didn't believe in disguising himself as something he wasn't, but for the first time in years, he felt nervous. Not about meeting a girl's parents, he had no fear of that, but about facing the ugly truth of racism and class prejudice head-on. When he finally arrived at Sara's mansion, the butler opened the door and stared at him with suspicion. Jack ignored it, keeping his posture straight, his eyes calm. Sara rushed to greet him, holding his hand as if she feared he might disappear. Her parents, however, weren't smiling. Her mother's eyes narrowed the moment they landed on Jack. "Sara, is this a joke?" she asked coldly. "No," Sara replied firmly. "This is Jack, my boyfriend." Her father's face darkened, his jaw tightening. "Sara, we will discuss this later. Right now, we have guests coming. Important guests. You cannot humiliate us like this." Sara tightened her grip on Jack's hand, her voice rising. "I'm not humiliating anyone. I'm in love, and you will respect him." The silence in the mansion grew heavy. Servants glanced at each other, sensing a storm about to break. Jack remained quiet, his dignity intact, though he could feel the weight of judgment pressing down on him. And in that silence, Sara whispered to him, just loud enough for him to hear, "Don't worry. They'll see you the way I see you. I promise." But Jack knew promises like that were fragile. He could already sense the storm coming. The tension in the mansion that evening was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Sara sat proudly beside Jack, her hand clutched tightly around his, refusing to let go even though her mother's burning glare and father's tightening fists told her she should. For Sara, this moment wasn't just about introducing her boyfriend, it was about fighting for the truth of her heart. Her mother was the first to break the silence. Her voice, sharp as glass, sliced through the dining room. "Sara, I need to speak with you privately now." But Sara shook her head, her chin held high. "Whatever you want to say, you can say it here." "I'm not hiding, Jack. Not from you, not from anyone." Her father, Jeff, slammed his glass of wine down on the table, the sound echoing. His face turned red with rage. "Do you know what you've done, Sara? Do you have any idea? I invited Hardy tonight, the regional manager from Empire Corporation. Do you know what this means for our company? Do you know what's at stake?" Sara's lips trembled, but her voice stayed strong. "I don't care about your business deals. I care about Jack. He's the man I love. He's the man I want to spend my life with." Her mother let out a harsh laugh, dripping with disgust. "Spend your life with him? Sara, look at him! A man twice your age. A man who probably scrubs shoes for a living. A man who—" "Enough!" Sara interrupted, her eyes blazing. "Don't you dare talk about him like that. Jack is worth more than all the money in this house. More than all your fake friends and contracts." Jeff rose from his chair, towering over Jack. His voice shook with fury. "You've embarrassed us, Sara. You've brought this street cleaner into our home, into my house. Do you want to destroy our reputation? What will Hardy think when he sees a beggar sitting at my dinner table?" The word beggar hung in the air like poison. Jack had been silent, patient, respectful, exactly as he promised Sara he would be. But that word cut deep. His jaw clenched, but his voice remained calm. "With all due respect, sir, I didn't come here to take anything from you. I came here because your daughter wanted you to meet me." "Respect?" Jeff spat. "You don't belong in this house. You don't belong in her life. You're 35 years old enough to be her father. You're poor, you're black, and you're nothing. Sara deserves a man with power, with class, not someone like you." Sara's face crumpled, tears brimming in her eyes, but she refused to look away. She turned to Jack, her voice shaking. "Don't listen to him. He doesn't know you. He doesn't see you the way I do." Her mother slammed her hand on the table. "Sara, stop this nonsense. You've humiliated us enough. Tell him to leave. Right now." But Sara held Jack's hand tighter. "No, he's not leaving. If he leaves, I leave too." The room fell into chaos. Her father's voice roared, her mother shouted, and the servants froze in shock. In the midst of it all, Jack remained seated, his posture straight, his eyes locked on Jeff. He was not a man begging for approval. He was a man enduring an insult with silent strength. Finally, Jeff pointed toward the door. His voice was cold and final. "Get out, before Hardy arrives. If he sees you here, if he sees this, he'll think we're no better than the trash off the street. And I will not let you ruin this family, Sara. Not for him. Not for anyone." Sara's tears fell freely now. Dad, please. Please stop. You don't understand. He's not what you think he is. But her father cut her off with a shout. Enough. He's nobody. At that moment, Jack stood. For the first time that evening, his deep voice filled the room with authority. I may not have your money. I may not have your mansion, but don't ever call me nobody. I am someone, and one day you'll see exactly who I am. The room fell silent. Sarah's parents glared at him, anger mixed with disbelief. Sara clung to his arm, whispering through her tears, You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't. But Jack knew the storm wasn't over. He could hear the sound of expensive tires pulling up the driveway. The butler rushed to the door. The guest had arrived. Jeff's voice hissed like venom. That's Hardy. If he sees you here, I swear. The door swung open and in walked a tall, well-dressed man in a gray suit. His presence immediately commanded respect. Everyone froze. Jeff's fury turned into panic. He whispered harshly, Go! Leave now before he sees you. But before Jack could move, Hardy's voice boomed warmly across the room. Sir Jack, I didn't know you'd be here already. The color drained from Jeff's face. His wife gasped. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. Hardy walked straight to Jack, extending his hand with admiration. Everyone, allow me to introduce you to my boss, our CEO. This is Mr. Jack Carter, the man who built Empire Corporation into what it is today. The room spun. Jeff nearly collapsed into his chair, his arrogance shattering like glass. His wife's lips trembled, words failing her. And Sara smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with pride. Her Jack wasn't a nobody. Her Jack was everything. For a long moment, silence drowned the entire mansion. The chandeliers sparkled above. The fine china on the table reflected the soft light. Yet the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. Sarah's father, Jeff, sat frozen in his chair, his mouth slightly open, his fingers trembling against the armrest. Only moments ago, he had called Jack a beggar, a street cleaner, a man unworthy of even stepping into his home. And now, standing before him, was Hardy, the man Jeff had spent weeks trying to impress, bowing, his head with genuine respect to the very person Jeff had mocked. Mr. Carter, Hardy said with a proud smile, shaking Jack's hand firmly. It's an honor, sir. I didn't realize you'd be here already. If I had known, I'd have arrived earlier. We've all been waiting for your guidance on the new contract. Jack's calm gaze never wavered. He accepted the handshake politely, his posture strong yet humble. Thank you, Hardy. It's good to see you. Sarah's mother pressed a hand to her chest, her face pale. See, CEO? He's the CEO, she whispered, disbelief dripping from every word. Jeff finally found his voice, though it cracked with shame. This must be some mistake. Hardy, you mean to say that this man is your boss? Hardy raised his brows, clearly confused. Yes, sir. Jack Carter isn't just my boss. He's the man who saved our company during the financial crisis. Without him, none of us would even be here. He's one of the most respected businessmen in the country. You didn't know? Jeff's face flushed bright red, the shame burning hotter than fire. He wanted to melt into the ground. Only minutes ago, he had called Jack a beggar in front of his entire household. Now that beggar was the very man whose signature could make or break his empire. Sarah's heart swelled with pride as she looked at Jack. She had always believed in him, even when her parents mocked and doubted. And now, the truth had silenced every insult, every prejudice, every cruel word. But Jack didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He didn't throw their insults back at them the way any ordinary man might. Instead, he stood with quiet dignity, his deep voice filling the room. Mr. Jeff, Jack said calmly, a man's worth is never measured by the color of his skin, nor by the weight of his wallet. You looked at me tonight and saw nothing but poverty. You called me a beggar, a cleaner, someone unworthy of your daughter. But the truth is, I was always the same man, before you knew my title, before Hardy said my name. CEO or salesman, I haven't changed. What changed was your perception. Jeff looked down, ashamed, but Jack wasn't finished. His words carried the power of years of pain and endurance. You talk about reputation. You worry about contracts and deals. But what about love? What about respect? You judged me before I could even speak. You judged me for being black. You judged me for not wearing a suit worth thousands of dollars. And in doing so, you revealed more about yourself than you ever could about me. The room was silent. Not even the servants dared to move. Sarah's mother opened her mouth to speak, but Jack raised a hand gently. I'm not here to insult you back. That's not who I am. Because Sara loves you, and because she loves you, I will respect you. But you must understand this. She chose me, not because of what I have, but because of who I am. And no amount of wealth or power can change the bond we share. Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears. She gripped Jack's arm, whispering softly, That's why I love you. Because you're not like them. Her father's pride crumbled. His empire, his contracts, his reputation, suddenly they felt small, insignificant in front of the truth that had been laid bare. He struggled to speak, his voice low. I didn't know. I thought you were... Jack interrupted, his tone firm but gentle. You thought wrong, and maybe tonight is the lesson you needed. Never judge a man by his skin, his age, or the clothes on his back. You might find you've turned away someone greater than you could ever imagine. Hardy, still standing near the door, cleared his throat. Mr. Carter is right. In fact, that's what makes him such a great leader. He treats everyone with the same respect, whether it's a janitor or a director. Maybe we could all learn something from that. Sara smiled through her tears, her hand tightening around Jack's. She turned to her parents, her voice breaking but strong. Do you see now? Do you finally understand why I chose him? I don't care about his age. I don't care about the money. I care about his heart. And that's something your world of contracts and deals could never give me. Her mother lowered her eyes, unable to meet her daughter's gaze. Jeff swallowed hard, his pride battling his guilt. But the truth was undeniable. They had insulted the very man they should have respected most. And for the first time that night, Sara felt like she had won, not just for herself, but for Jack. But Jack wasn't finished. He turned to Sara gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Sara, I forgive them. They don't know me the way you do. And forgiveness is stronger than hate. Tonight, let's not build walls. Let's build bridges. Sara's heart swelled with love. Even after everything, after all the insults, all the humiliation, Jack still chose kindness, still chose grace. In that moment, she realized what true strength looked like. And she also knew her battle with her family was far from over. Because forgiveness didn't erase prejudice overnight. It only opened the door to change. The silence that followed Jack's words was heavier than any argument could have been. Jeff's face, once red with fury, now looked drained, pale, as though every ounce of his pride had been stripped away. His wife sat beside him, her manicured hands trembling as they clutched her wine glass, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Sara, her eyes shining with both tears and triumph, clung tightly to Jack's arm, as though daring anyone to pull her away. She could feel his calm heartbeat, steady and unwavering, and that gave her courage to speak. Mom, Dad, she began softly, her voice trembling but strong. I love you, but I won't let you tear apart the man I love. You wanted me to marry for status, for money, for business deals. But I don't want a husband who treats me like a trophy. I want a husband who treats me like a woman, a person, with respect, with honesty, with love. Jack is that man. And if you can't see that, then maybe you don't really know me at all. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Sara, she whispered, her voice cracking. We only wanted the best for you. A future secure, a life of luxury. Sara cut her off, shaking her head fiercely. But that's your dream, not mine. I was born into wealth, but I've never been free. My life has been about appearances, galas, contracts, and reputations. Do you know what that feels like? To live in a golden cage? Jeff finally lifted his head, his voice rough, his pride fighting its last battle. And you think freedom lies in a man like him? A man so much older? A man who... Jack's deep voice interrupted gently, firm, yet calm. A man who will protect her. A man who will never see her as a business transaction. A man who will honor her choices, even if the world turns against us. That's what I can give her, Jeff. Not just wealth, not just security, but dignity. Hardy, who had been silently observing, finally stepped forward. His presence was like a mirror reflecting the truth no one could deny. Sir, he addressed Jeff respectfully, I've worked under Mr. Carter for years. I've seen him treat janitors with the same respect he gives investors. I've seen him spend late nights helping struggling employees without asking for recognition. And I've seen him make decisions that saved thousands of jobs. If this is the man your daughter has chosen, then she's chosen better than you realize. Jeff's throat tightened. He had always thought of himself as powerful, respected, untouchable. But here he was, standing small in front of the very man he had insulted. His chest ached, not just with humiliation, but with something deeper: guilt. Sara squeezed Jack's hand tighter, her voice soft but unyielding. "Dad, Mom, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm asking for your acceptance, because Jack is my future, and nothing you say can change that." Her mother broke down then, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. She turned to Jeff, her voice shaking. "Jeff, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we judged too quickly. Look at him. Look at how he carries himself. Even after everything we said, he's still standing here with dignity. Do you really want to lose our daughter because of our pride?" Jeff clenched his jaw, his pride resisting. But his wife's words pierced through his stubbornness. He looked at Jack, then at Sara, and for the first time in his life, he felt powerless. He had money, reputation, and influence, but none of it could command his daughter's heart. Finally, Jeff stood, his voice heavy. "Jack, I may never fully understand your world, and I may never forgive myself for the words I spoke tonight, but I cannot deny what I see in my daughter's eyes. She loves you, and I would rather lose my pride than lose her." Sara gasped softly, covering her mouth with her free hand. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Dad." Jack nodded slowly, his expression calm but warm. "That's all I ask, Jeff. Not your wealth, not your approval. Just your willingness to see me as a man. Not a color, not a title." Hardy smiled faintly, breaking the heaviness in the room. "Well, this turned into a very different dinner than I expected. But perhaps the best kind of business isn't about contracts, it's about people." For the first time that night, a small, genuine smile tugged at Sara's lips. She leaned her head against Jack's shoulder, whispering so only he could hear, "I told you. They'd see you the way I do one day." Jack glanced at her softly. "It wasn't me they needed to see, Sara. It was themselves." The words lingered in the air, carrying a lesson far greater than any deal Jeff could ever sign. And though the wounds of the night would take time to heal, one truth had been laid bare. Love was stronger than pride, stronger than prejudice, and stronger than the chains of expectation. But even as peace began to settle in the room, Jack knew one thing. This battle was only the beginning. Acceptance spoken in shame could easily vanish in pride tomorrow. And so he remained vigilant, protecting not just Sara's heart, but the fragile bridge now built between two worlds. The night had stretched long into silence after Jeff's reluctant acceptance. The candles on the dining table burned low, casting soft golden light across the room. Sara leaned against Jack, her heart still pounding from the storm that had shaken her family to its core. She had stood her ground. Jack had shown his strength. And her parents, well, they were beginning to see the cracks in the walls they had built around their hearts. But the road ahead was not easy. Sara's mother broke the silence first. Her voice was quieter now, fragile, almost childlike. "Jack, I owe you an apology. I looked at you tonight and saw nothing but what I feared: age, color, class. I didn't see the man in front of me, and that's my shame to carry." She paused, her voice trembling. "Forgive me." Jack nodded slowly, his expression calm. "Forgiveness isn't something you need to beg for. It's something freely given. I forgive you both. But remember this: every time you judge a person by the surface, you not only hurt them, you blind yourself from knowing their true worth." Jeff shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The weight of guilt pressed heavily against his chest. For years, he had prided himself on being a man of vision, a businessman who could see opportunities where others saw nothing. And yet, when it came to his daughter's happiness, he had been blind. He lowered his eyes and muttered, "You're right. I was wrong. I saw only what I wanted to see. And in doing so, I almost lost my daughter." Sara reached for her father's hand. Her voice was soft but steady. "You didn't lose me, Dad, but you came close. Please, don't make me choose between the two men I love most in this world." Jeff's throat tightened. He looked at his daughter, then at Jack. And for the first time, he truly saw the man standing before him, not the color of his skin, not the age difference, not the supposed poverty, but the strength, the dignity, the love that radiated from him. And he realized this was a man worth respecting. Hardy, who had been leaning quietly against the wall, smiled faintly. "Well, I'd say this contract has already been signed, wouldn't you? Not on paper, but in hearts." Everyone chuckled softly at the irony, easing some of the tension. Jack placed an arm gently around Sara, pulling her closer. His voice was steady, filled with both grace and power. "Sara, I didn't fall in love with you because of your family name. I fell in love with you because of your heart. You saw me when the world told you to look away. You chose me when it would have been easier to walk away. That's what love is. Choosing each other even when it's hard." Sara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of joy. "And I'll keep choosing you, Jack, every single day." Her mother wiped her cheeks quietly. Her father exhaled deeply, as though letting go of years of pride and prejudice all at once. "If this is the man you choose, Sara," Jeff said slowly, "then I will try. I can't promise perfection, but I will try." Jack smiled, offering his hand across the table. Jeff hesitated only for a moment before taking it. Their handshake wasn't just a gesture, it was a truce, the first fragile bridge between two worlds that had seemed destined to clash. The butler entered then, discreetly, to announce that the evening meal was ready, but no one cared about the food anymore. What mattered had already been served, the truth. Later, as the night grew quiet and the guests departed, Sara and Jack stepped out onto the balcony of the mansion. The city lights sparkled in the distance, 1,000 stars reflected in the streets below. Sara leaned into him, whispering softly, "Do you think they'll ever truly accept us?" Jack kissed her forehead gently, his deep voice steady. "Acceptance takes time, Sara. People don't change overnight. But love is patient. And as long as we stand together, nothing else matters." She smiled, her heart full. "Then let's stand together forever." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if the world could fall away and they would still remain. And in that moment, Sara knew the truth. Wealth fades. Reputations crumble, contracts break. But love, when it's real, survives everything. Down below, Jeff watched quietly from the window, his wife at his side. For the first time in years, his eyes softened. He saw not the mistakes, not the shame, but the possibility of something greater than all the power he had ever chased. A family united not by pride but by love. And though it would take time, he whispered to himself the words he had never thought he'd say. Maybe he really is the best man for her. Sara didn't hear those words, but she didn't need to. She had Jack's hand in hers, his steady presence beside her, and the promise of a future built not on wealth or appearances, but on truth. The princess had chosen her stranger, and in doing so, she had found a love richer than any empire.